And Mr. Fouad Al-Najah, the CEO of and founder of NAMX, has a flight in a few hours, so I will invite him to introduce himself and give us some first insights. Thank you very much. So the floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Fawzi Al-Najah, founder and CEO of NAMX. NAMX is a new hydrogen car company. It's a group. We have a car side program and our new hydrogen capsule system to provide hydrogen easier and faster to consumer. And we believe hydrogen for mobility and, of course, e-fuels, because there is one topic, one big issue for aviation or mobility is pressure. And it's one fact that will help a lot e-fuels because there is no pressure, in fact. When you talk about plane, cars, trucks, with NAMX we started to work on fuel cell car and fuel cell system and ICE engine. And we saw a lot of issues about pressure, tanks for trucks or cars. So I believe that e-fuels will help a lot to move from petrol, gasoline energy to a greener energy for mobility. So I believe a lot in e-fuels, and I think hydrogen gas will be useful after this step, not now. But as I say, we need to find consumer and to start now, because we can talk every year about hydrogen, about e-fuels, but if we don't find consumer, it will be tough, very tough to build a real ecosystem. So I'm very quick, sorry, because I have a flight to Paris, but just we have to find consumer and maybe use e-fuels to start a new move from fossil to green energy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes. And just one question. I think as we are witnessing, this shift, and we are doing our best, to accelerate this energy transition. And for the transport, it's a hard to abate sector, but basic question, in your opinion, are e-fuels technologically and economically ready to support the decarbonization of long-distance transport across air, sea, and road sectors?
I think it's not ready now, to be very honest, because we have one issue. If you want to produce e-fuels, we need hydrogen. And if you want to produce hydrogen, we need energy. A lot of megawatts in Morocco, for example. And I think it's not enough to provide a lot of e-fuels for trucks or cars. So we have to, of course. So I think if we only count about price distribution is too high now, because there is a very small demand. And as a CEO of NAMX, it's my work to find millions of consumers for hydrogen producer and e-fuel producer. That's my works. And I believe that people want to drive e-fuels because we bring passion for driving for thermic engine, short time recharge is like a petrol car, and a long range. And it's the basic of the automotive industry. And with electric car, we've lost this freedom of movement. And we can bring it again thanks to e-fuel or hydrogen. So yeah, we have consumer, a lot of millions of drivers, But yeah, there is one issue is about the hydrogen production and the energy production. So if we find a solution about that, it will be easier for us to sell this solution. Thank you.
Thank you, very insightful. And for Morocco, as we are in Morocco, in Marrakesh, how can Morocco, this beautiful country, and it's well positioned, strategically, between Sub-Saharan Africa and Europe, and you have also the Middle East in between, and can this country leverage its potential on renewables energy, and also leverage its strategic position to become a key player in global e-fuels supply or regional e-fuels supply chain?
Yes, for me it's simple. I would be quick again. We have, for Morocco, a very big opportunity because we have Europe markets. As you know, in 2035, it will be done for gasoline car or diesel. It will be only hydrogen or e-fuels or electric car. So you have billion and billion euros of market. So if Morocco will produce hydrogen or enough e-fuels, we can produce a car, and can export the car and export the energy for this European market. So I think we have no choice. The only key is to produce enough energy again.
So to conclude, just one advice from yourself, how you see, the future of e-fuels.
I think if I can share one advice is we have to work together between startup and very deep tech company and investors, and that's the point. And that's the reason that in US and China there is a very fast move. And Morocco, if you want to have success, hydrogen and e-fuel wave, we have to work between talents, startup companies and investors. That's the point for me.
Thank you very much. Please join me to applaud Mr. Fawzi Najah, and I wish you a very safe and
okay. Thank you again, and thanks a lot for this time, and see you soon, and thank you for this beautiful organization. Thank you.
Okay, so that's done. And now I will invite Monica Swanson to introduce yourself and give us, your first insights regarding, the topic. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I believe I have some slides. I'm not sure they're visible. Oh, they are. Good. And thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's been already 5 years that I've been at the World WorldPtX in Marrakesh, or in Morocco, I should say. And it's impressive how things have grown. I know most of you will have seen this slide before. It's a slide we've been using for a long, long time, but we have a different story of progress around it. I think you know that we're doing a pipeline across the port and industrial zone for hydrogen. That's the white thing in the middle. That will connect onto a pipeline to Germany, the Delta Rhine corridor, where we'll bring hydrogen and take CO2. So we're going to help decarbonize both our own industry and the German industry, our neighbors, because we have a carbon capture and storage project. And that's the little blue thing in the middle. And the carbon we capture from our own industrial processes, so that's the refinery and chemical industry, the hydrogen producers, because we have about 500,000 tons of grey hydrogen production in our port. CO2 is going to be captured, and it's going to be stored underneath the North Sea in empty gas cavities. So we're building new infrastructure and repurposing the gas fields, right? Also, the Dutch national gas grid is going to be partly repurposed. So we're going to connect to that too. So there's going to be several initiatives. And yesterday we had a panel and we discussed that there's a lot of, there's been a big hype and there's a bit of skepticism. And I really wanted to be here to also talk about what's really happening, also in our port, because most of you also know that we've been developing this vision from about 2013. So this is actually the representation of that vision with import, with the carbon capture and storage, also with green electricity concessions in the North Sea, linking up to electrolyzer production in our electrolyzer cluster, and we're setting up 2 clusters. Originally we had 1. I'm going to talk about the timelines for this and what's actually happening, but I think we can safely say, all of us here, the companies that are here now, we're still here, right? And we're still doing it, and we're making progress. So that's the main message really I have. And then I'm going to try, I'm going to also say why. Why are we doing this? This is a slide, just a picture that is in our latest annual report, 2023, 2024. They always come a bit later, but the latest. And what you see here is the stats where the projects we're doing and actually now implementing or soon will be implemented are showing the reduction in CO2 emissions in our port and industrial zone. Of course, with 3,000 companies, a lot of chemical, refinery industry, we're a very, very large emitter in the Netherlands. I have to say the companies in our port, because we are only an organization of 1,400 people. But the emissions, 20.2 million tons 2023, and then we want to reduce them to 8.8 in 2030. And we're doing that on the basis, this whole stat is calculations of the result of real projects that are happening now, being implemented in these years up to 2030. So if we think about the reason we're doing this whole transition, this is for me a very hopeful thing, that we're actually really doing this, and that the whole world, well, maybe some exceptions, but a lot of people in the world are striving to achieve this type of thing. And it has to go down to 0, obviously. Just some real results and timelines, because, again, I want to really emphasize that it is happening. This is about the first electrolyzer cluster. You can see Conversion Park, that's the electrolyzer cluster. And the first one, 200 megawatts, that's a Shell initiative, but there's another one, Air Liquide underneath, that's also taken FID and published that recently. It's going to be ready, operational, 2026. That's next year. I think that's good. And if we all do that in our own jobs, in our own area of expertise, our own countries, I think we'll get there. We've had a lot of work done on, where could we have additional ammonia capacity safely, which companies want to be involved, how can we connect it to the national system. So that's all happening, a lot of discussions on it, and what you see is the pieces of the puzzle are falling in the right places, into the right places, and people are aligning, and you can see from these timelines. Again, of course, there may be delays, but this is published timelines, intentions, and likely to happen as depicted. We already have a number of new ammonia initiatives on top of course, the OCI terminal we already have that is expanding. We have a good position for methanol, always had that, but it's being strengthened and also expanded. We have the kerosene network going to the main airports, Schiphol, Frankfurt, Paris, and we connect directly into that. So once there's the obligation to mix 2% or 6% into that system, it can be done from Rotterdam, right? And we have production of SAFs in Rotterdam, but we also see and expect to get imports for it, and we also have capacity to do that, et cetera, et cetera. I think the picture, in short, is not so glum or grim as sometimes people think, these are all the industrial areas that can be reached from our port. We are fortunate that way, we know, but we also feel it's a big obligation and a big commitment for us to be able to keep servicing these areas properly with new fuels and feedstocks to reduce all these emissions, right? And this is the planning. And I'm sure these slides can be shared later, but as you can see, up to in the next couple of years, we're going to do a lot, and there's real implementations being done. 2032, also an important year. I just want to mention that we had long discussions on timelines for the Delta Rhine corridor. That's the pipeline into Germany for hydrogen. And we've all agreed 2032 is the good time. And that's when the big volumes start arriving. I've been hearing the same in all the panels from all the companies. We do expect first volumes, 2026 already, and we have capacity for that. We're also adding barge capacity just to make sure that we can do it all for real, right? There's no gaps in the midstream. But I think, we've been working on this for a long time, and if we all just keep going like we want to do and stick to our plans, it's okay. We'll do it. So that's my little thing for today.
Thank you very much, Monica, for this very insightful introduction. And I am sure that Port of Rotterdam is one of the best examples that we can show as an integrated, port. It's like, from my opinion, it's like a green hydrogen valley. So integrating all the supply chain, and that is, I think, very important to highlight. So thank you very much. I will get back to you with some questions, but let me introduce Mr. Daniel Newman, who is the Principal Head of Energy Business, the FEV Consulting GmbH. So the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, a pleasure to be part of the panel. I brought also 2-3 slides with me to give first, general introduction, and then also some impulse, let me say, for that topic. First of all, who's FEV? I think FEV in Morocco is known for automotive, or in the automotive industry, but perhaps not yet in the energy industry. So we are an engineering service provider and consulting company, supporting mobility and energy industry around the world, 7,000 employees currently worldwide. Also a huge presence here in Morocco with 200 people, and having also our first sustainable fuels projects here in Morocco. So we identified Morocco, besides the automotive business, as an important business for us when it comes to sustainable fuels. And within FEV, we have the business area FEV Energy and Resources, and that's where we combine our consulting and engineering capabilities to support the energy industry. And within that, and that's what I'm responsible for, is the sustainable fuels business line, and within that we support customers from fuel design. So what is the ideal fuel look like for different applications, for maritime, so for ships, for aircrafts, for vehicles. We go then further to develop the production facilities for methanol, for hydrogen, for ammonia, for SAF. And we are also able to test then the fuel if necessary, or if asked by the customer, at our test benches and test tracks. But enough as an introduction. First impulse, and I hope that's the right one. Right. So, and I want to do 2 or 3 statements to that slide. What you see here is our energy demand model results. So we developed our own FEV tool to forecast the energy demand mix for different regions in the world, for different sectors. And what you can see here is the results for the European Union, for passenger cars, for commercial vehicles, for aviation, and for maritime. And I can talk half an hour about this slide, but I want to keep it short, and I just want to underline that from our point of view, there's no way around sustainable fuels. Absolutely not. Let's say, if we want to reach the targets we have set, and this is now, as I said, the results for the European Union. And what you can see here, combined, the different sectors combined, we will see a strong demand coming up already today and getting even stronger for biofuels, biomass-based fuels in the future, and that will be then supported step by step, especially from 2040 onwards, by e-fuels. So there need to be sustainable fuels, otherwise we don't have any chance to fulfill the targets for the combined transportation sector. And to show you the results for the different sectors, you see them here separated, and the main demand will come from aviation and maritime, since there's not a lot of other alternatives, right? At least for the bigger ones, for the bigger aircrafts, for longer distance, for the bigger ships, and so on and so further. And also here we will see, from our point of view, a mix of biofuels in the mix and e-fuels, then step by step adding to that from 2040 onwards. So, as I said before, there's a clear need, and we don't, let's say, have another possibility than pushing the production ramp up of these fuels, because otherwise we will not meet the targets we have set. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Very useful, and we'll take care of your modeling and have this, expectations and also some targets, and we'll get back to you with some questions. Let me now shift to Mr. Ayoub Hurt. Is from the Institut de Recherche en Énergie Solaire and Énergie Renouvelable. So the floor is yours, Mr. Ayoub. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the presentation of the colleagues, and thank you for inviting me to share some insights from our institutes, IRESEN, the Research Institute for Solar Energy and New Energies. So from our side, we are an institute working and operating some projects since 2011. Maybe just to go back to the creation of the institute, IRESEN, and maybe this is a little bit difference between the projects that we are working on and maybe the conferences regarding the hydrogen. So IRESEN is working especially on the green hydrogen, because there is a story behind that. When we were created, the first times we were working on the solar energy, and we have the first pilots with the CSP technology, and then in the years of 2017, 2018, we started thinking about how we can store the green electricity. So one of the solutions was to convert this electricity to hydrogen, to green chemicals. And then we had the privilege to work on the hydrogen roadmap that was validated and also shared via the Ministry of Energy Transition and Sustainable Development in 2021. So our work, in generally, we have like a philosophy to start by some strategic projects, and also to see the benefit of these projects for the Moroccan companies and also internationally. And that's why all the projects, they are concerned by the, I would say, the theoretical part, which is the TRL 1, 2, 3, and then we go for the construction of, I would say, the megawatt scale. And this is the philosophy that we have at the Green Energy Park, Green Smart Building Park, and also in Côte d'Ivoire or Ivory Coast, and we are developing also another R&D center. So for the moment, we are working on the green hydrogen application platform near to Casablanca in Jorf Lasfar, where we have for the moment an operational works regarding the production of green ammonia, and also we launched since 1 year now another project for green methanol. So why these two molecules? Because in Morocco, maybe, and this is the difference between, for example, Netherlands, Germany, or France, we are consuming the hydrogen molecule, which is 2 atoms of hydrogen. In Morocco, unfortunately, we are not consuming the hydrogen, but we are consuming also other molecules like ammonia, like methanol, like kerosene. And this is why we give a focus for these molecules more. Of course, we are also supporting our governments regarding the strategic studies or the strategic steps. We were also involved for the Moroccan hydrogen offer.
Thank you very much, Ayoub. Maybe I will ask you just to elaborate a little bit, to give the audience, an idea about the green park in Bengurir. It was very impressive because I visited last year. We performed a training there and the hackathon, with more than 60 students, PhD and masters. So that can be very useful for the audience also to.
Yeah, for Green Energy Park and also the Green Smart Building Park, this is a place where the industrials, they can meet people from academia. And by this way, we are developing projects in order to respond to the demand at the industrials. So for example, for the Green Energy Park, you can see different projects regarding the solar energy, the thermal part, and the CSP, and also the photovoltaic. We have also some projects regarding the batteries, energy storage, and also the modelization. At the Green Smart Building Park, here we can talk more about the sustainable construction and also sustainable mobility. For the green hydrogen application platform, here we need to give like a deep dive insights regarding the electrolysis parts. For example, the projects, green ammonia pilot plants, the CAP projects, we will focus ourselves on the electrolysis technology, PEM and alkaline. And for the power to methanol projects, here we will give a focus for the technologies regarding carbon capture. It means comparing the direct air capture with the capturing or storing the carbon from industrials here in Morocco.
Thank you very much. Very useful. Yes, Monica, back to you with the first question. I think it's very important to just to identify, the modes of transport. Which ones, aviation, maritime, or road freight, are best positioned, today, to adopt the e-fuels in the short now, in the short and the long run, and why? Can you elaborate on this, please?
Thank you for the question. I showed that slide, that one we show every year with our vision. What I forgot to mention was we've also been involved in a trucks project, a fuel cell trucks. Actually, not only fuel cells, but dual fuel, hydrogen fuel trucks. We also cooperate with the Innovation Center of Schiphol Airport, and they're doing all kinds of pilots with hydrogen-fueled small planes and also SAFs, of course. There's a lot happening. What works best, I think, is a combination of very good legislation, because what we see is everybody's turning to these SAFs now, because why? At least there's an obligation, right? And earlier in the panel before us on geopolitics, there was
obligation, regulation. It's a policy, or
yeah, I mean the obligation to mix 2% into the traditional fuels. We see that happening with IMO as well for ship bunkering.
IMO, yes.
As you know, we're a big bunkering port. So actually, and I said this yesterday too, we are now seeing the first contracts for bunkering ammonia. Actually, I think that's very interesting. And why is that? Because there's 400 ships being built, commissioned to use ammonia. And we can sit on the fence as off-takers and wait for the price to go down, but at some point you want security. So we're reaching this point where off-take and production are finally, clinching deals. But if you say, what is the fastest one? I think also the trucks, because the next and that's driven by a problem, that we all have a problem with our electricity grids everywhere now. And I really believe in electrification as a good solution, but I also believe in hydrogen as another solution we need, both of them. But hydrogen is needed because it's simply cheaper to have hydrogen refueling stations than to have charging points and an incredibly huge grid to electrify all truck transportation. So you will need that too. So we, at this point in time, see all of them happening. We've planned 1,000 trucks on hydrogen. We have a plan for 25 hydrogen truck refueling stations, 3 of which in our port, in future 5. So we see everything progressing. It's not like one is going to win, but it helps to have legislation and a necessity. That's my answer.
Okay, very interesting. And the same question, Daniel, because I saw in one of your figures that aviation will take off first. I don't know why, but this is the question that because in my opinion, you know, the road, it's more easier, you know, to drive a car or have e-fuel, you know, in a car than in a plane. But if you can, you know, elaborate in this, because in my opinion, who is the best position, you know, to adopt the e-fuels? Maybe you have some, some explanation to this.
Yeah, I mean that has different aspects, right? So what I've shown was the results for the EU, right? And with regards to the EU, we have clear policies, right? We have clear targets, and especially for aviation, we have the, let's say, clearest targets, right? We have quotas for aviation that they need to use e-fuels, biofuels in the next future, and that's quite clear defined. And based on that, we assume, or let's say, they have to adopt first for these kind of sustainable liquid fuels. Yeah. That's why we see aviation first in adopting to the e-fuels. Second, we would rather see maritime before we think that commercial vehicles or passenger cars will go for sustainable fuels. And maritime, the maritime has also quite clear targets, not quotas like aviation. But let's see also based on these targets, there is a need to use other fuels than fossil fuels. Yeah? Maritime will go first, and already doing that, for LNG. That already helps to fulfill the targets. But then in the future, when targets get stronger, let's say, there also maritime needs to go for other fuels, like, for example, then a sustainable methane instead of LNG. And we already see that happening. And then going for dual fuel engines, we also see that you have, let's say, a fossil fuel combined then with, for example, sustainable methanol. And why don't we see the on-road sector going for sustainable fuels? And that's not right. We also see in the mix, at least that was also shown on my slide, that we also see some liquid sustainable fuels for the on-road. But a short answer is batteries are just now too good and are just getting too good, and it's hard to compete against that. And if you do a TCO, so a total cost of ownership calculation, then it's getting really fast clear that at least for passenger cars, that's the best alternative, going full electric. But also for a commercial vehicle, and that changed the last 3 years. So going 4 years back, let's say, we also had that forecast and also that kind of vehicle forecast, right? And there we saw much more hydrogen in the mix for commercial vehicles. But we made the experience, and we as FEV are also developing these kind of powertrains and also batteries, but also ICE engines. And based on our experience and also in the cooperation with all the OEMs, the battery, the full electric, also in the commercial vehicle from a total cost of ownership perspective, has clear advantages. So from our point of view, when it comes to heavy-duty on-road, there we will see both full electric and hydrogen-driven ones, and the sustainable liquid fuel for the on-road sectors that is then needed for the fleet that will be still there in 2040 and 2045. But from our point of view, at least for the on-road sector, that's not the first choice to use their sustainable liquid fuels, and that's the important thing, liquid fuels, right? But we think that the big demand comes from aviation and maritime, and that's why I said, and I just want to underline that, there's no way around sustainable liquid fuels in transportation, but that will be aviation and maritime from our perspective.
Thank you very much. A very informative, insight. And I will introduce also Karim Fassis, the China head of decarbonization, from the maritime, perspective. And yes, you have one slide to show us. So the floor is yours, Karim.
Yeah. Thanks. Hello, everyone. First of all, thanks a lot for inviting me. It's been a very inspiring 2 days. Maybe a self-introduction. So I'm heading decarbonization activities for Maersk in China, where I lived for now over 20 years. So I've witnessed how China has become a global powerhouse when it comes to renewable electricity, to start with. And so here I'm very happy to be able to share what we have achieved in decarbonizing shipping, or at least the very beginning of it. But yes, I think thanks to a lot of efforts and investments, we've now reached a point where we can say proudly that we have managed to go from 0 to 1. I will explain. And now we'll see also what are the challenges for our industry to go from 1 to 100. So maybe also I'd like to also give you a heads up on one of my key message. And that's also the reason why I came to this summit. One is obviously to be able to share what has the shipping industry achieved, actually in very close collaboration with China. China is definitely part of the equation. That needs to be clear. If you apply first principles, Morocco, wind and solar resource on top of China's supply chain capex, that gives you the world's cheapest levelized cost of ammonia. This I'm definitely convinced. So now the question is, how do we get access to China cost? How do we make it happen? So maybe first I'll go directly to the decarbonization roadmap of Maersk. Our decarbonization journey started in 2018. And at this time, we've announced that we will go net zero by 2050. We had no clear pathway, but it was a very strong ambition from our chairman. So we've invested quite some resources in trying to find a solution. And by 2021, we came with a very important conclusion, which is that if we start using a new carbon neutral fuel called green methanol, not only we will be able to achieve these targets, but we will be able to achieve it 10 years earlier. So we've done two things in 2021. One is obviously update our ambition to 2040, but also, and more importantly, we've announced the first order of methanol-powered vessels. And I'm also happy to tell you that now, out of these 25 ordered vessels, it's already 10 or 11 that are already in operation. But when this was announced in 2021, it was a huge message for the energy industry, meaning that finally the energy industry had a potential demand which is very tangible, because we're talking about vessels that are now in operation, for green hydrogen derivatives. The other important role that we played in this journey is to work with port authorities, including, of course, Rotterdam, to make them, let's say, methanol ready for bunkering. But the last piece, and this piece has a lot to do with China and with what I will say after, is that when we have the vessels, port are ready, but then where is the fuel? And of course, it was always, again, chicken and egg. How do we get an acceptable cost? And here, it's important to also quantify the challenge. We are replacing conventional fuel. Conventional fuel is a commodity. You go on any bunkering website, you will have the latest public domain price information. And keep in mind that it is double the energy density of methanol. In other words, if you start paying more than half the price of fossil fuel, you start paying green premium. And that leads you to a target price which is super scary for everyone, but not for the Chinese. So we've announced this cost target at scale to the Chinese supply chain, and all of a sudden, They worked hard, and we achieved 2 announced commercial contracts, at least, that are now being produced. One with Goldwind, the world leading turbine manufacturer, and one with LONGi, top 3 solar PV manufacturer. And these are large scale, 500,000 ton per annum methanol binding offtake agreements. Basically, the exact thing that we keep hearing is needed for Morocco to move ahead with ammonia. The key was to make sure that we get access to China costs, and that's also important for Morocco. Just also a few figures. I'll try to be fast here because so when we've started working with China, they saw the opportunity, and very fast we had a huge pipeline of planned projects, 25 million ton per annum as we speak, from which one of my role is to make sure that we get, of course, the best out of this volume. Also on the right side, you see a bit of statistics showing that nowadays it's still very much dominated by the private OEM, actually. But knowing China, when we go from 1 to 100, there will be these SOE, state-owned enterprise, coming in the picture. That's something you cannot avoid. This I will skip, it's not so relevant. Maybe here, just a few words on how, to me, China has achieved this. It's always by the same equation. Someone gives scale, the supply chain gives cost. Cost at the target defined by whoever gives scale. In that case, of course, is the Chinese government who gave scale with a very clear line sight of how the electricity price will go down over time. On this, they've also started with the huge manufacturing, but very aggregated. That's also a key for Morocco, to aggregate the volumes in order to make supply chain efficient. And then China also improved a lot in the span of 20 years in performance. So just as an illustration, you see that now the by far largest blades are produced in China. We have already reached now more than 150 meters per blade. So rotor dia above 300. Again, this will be needed to make the most out of Morocco wind. But then, of course, once you have these
Sorry for interrupt you. Can you please conclude, because we are late on time.
Okay, I go.
Yes.
Maybe.
Because you have 14 slides.
Okay. I'll drop my key message then.
Okay.
So I'll go directly to this one. So this is the conclusion, and the conclusion is that, again, these are numbers to be challenged, and this is on the basis of a very strong assumption: Moroccan wind and solar resource with China capex. And again, China capex, that's something I was showing, but this is public domain. It's not something we can all have access to, data at least, showing China capex, because it's on a monthly basis, you have several public tenders. And here, of course, when you see these numbers, they are super appealing. And so now my ambition is to bring the assumptions that you see for capex to Morocco. And of course, Maersk will play a role in this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Karim. Very insightful. It's impressive. Just one question about the roadmap. It's very ambitious, and I saw the numbers there. But in your opinion, honestly, where are we now on the decarbonization journey of the shipping sector globally, but also if you have some insight from China or
from China, I've just shared, but maybe where are we now is that we are at a crucial moment. In 15 days at the IMO, there will be, hopefully, the conclusion of several years of discussions related to something called the net zero framework. So nowadays, this is what we are, to go to from 1 to 100, we definitely need this in place. It's not sustainable to rely only on shipping lines to carry or to bear the whole burden of the green premium, which I've quantified already, but basically above 300 USD per ton, it is green premium. So now imagine what is Maersk and the shipping lines bearing if there is no guidelines and support and mechanisms at the IMO. So this is in 15 days. I wish this summit had been after that. We would have so much more to say.
Thank you very much, Karim. Back to you, Ayub. At Reason, I think research and development is very important, to reduce the cost, to enhance the efficiency of the electrolyzers and all the supply chain. So that is, I think, very important to have some pilots, projects, and learn from from others, countries that they are mostly more advanced in research and development and innovation. Are there some pilots in Morocco that exist? What kind of type of project? And what is the objective of those pilots? It's for research, for education, or both, maybe?
Thanks. Well, yes. Thanks. Well, for the moment, we have one operational pilot. It's at the Green Energy Park that was installed in 2021, producing green hydrogen. And also we have the green ammonia pilots under construction. So we're thinking that we will make the commissioning. For the moment, the commissioning is planned for the next year. For the next year, yes, for the end of 2026. It's just for information, when we are talking at Irezen about pilots, we are given like a big interest of controlling the whole value chain. Unfortunately, we visited a lot of pilots in different countries, but we were a little bit disappointed because they are not controlling the whole value chain. For example, if they are producing methanol, they are like having the hydrogen and are just converting the hydrogen from hydrogen to methanol. It's the same thing for ammonia. For our case, we wanted to control the whole value chain because by this way we can give the response. Does it give a sense to go for green hydrogen projects and also Power-to-X projects? There is some challenges. For example, the Fischer-Tropsch process or the Haber-Bosch. These are some processes that need energy 24/7. So we cannot cut them because, as you know, renewable is not 24/7 available. And this is the challenge that we want to take in order to de-risk the projects. Also, the power-to-methanol projects. This is a project that, as I mentioned before, we launched it. And if everything goes well, we are planning the commission by 2027, 2028. Of course, this is not. It's not easy to develop like this kind of projects. For example, some of the suppliers that are giving more interest for the European countries than commercializing their equipment in Africa. That's why I'm believing that if we can work all together, here we can go and develop faster the markets of hydrogen.
Thank you. Is there any partnerships with maybe other labs or research centers in Europe, for example?
For the moment, the pilots that we are working on, there's a partnership with the OCP group and also UM6P. So we are 3 partners developing these projects, of course.
Okay, thank you. Back to Monica, I think we know that international cooperation is key, and we cannot, work alone in developing, e-fuels or Power-to-X, and that is, I think, very important. And Maybe you can elaborate on this in this aspect, as you are the international cooperation manager at the Port of Rotterdam, and what is the demand, the early demand on reliable market for e-fuels? Are you seeing, you know, an expansion? Are you seeing clear demand? So maybe you can share also your insight on those, plus the international cooperation. Thank you.
Okay, well, of course, what I said on, you know, how demand is developing earlier still applies, because we see that the hesitation is, you know, slowly removed from the market, because you have to have supply before demand is, or supply is exhausted, because there's a low-scale production often. We also earlier talked about what kind of pilots or what kind of projects are going on that are sort of exemplary, like you mentioned. I'm also thinking about something, the predecessor in the previous panel, Mr. Ali Zerouali, an old friend and fierce discussion partner from previous projects, also said that look at what you're doing right next to you. Look at what you can contribute easily. If you have a production site and an off-taker right next to it, that's the way to start, because it might seem contradictory for me as a port. People always think we're only here for export-import, but we can only do that if there's development first. There's no use trying to get gigawatt projects for export if you don't have a local market to start it with. So, and this is also why I'm so pleased to see how everything is evolving here in Morocco. There's a lot of industrial development planned around ports, so congratulations on that, and thank you.
Thank you very much for your kind words. You know, back to Daniel. I think we didn't, you know, talk about the policy, regulations, challenges. I'm not sure if you have, you know, took this aspect into consideration in your models, and how the policy and the regulatory challenges, particularly in our emerging countries, it can slow down, you know, the adoption of the e-fuels. It can, you know, enhance, you know, the perception or the risk perception of the, you know, off-takers or developers to engage in this, you know, in this journey of developing or producing e-fuels.
Yeah, let me also there focus on EU. I think also for Morocco, EU will be a target market, right, when it comes to liquid fuels. And I think there are multiple aspects, multiple policies, regulations, targets, and so on we can talk about that could be different, let's say, or it would be good if they would be different. But let me focus on 2, 3 that are, let me put it that way, somehow also in my project frustrating, right? And one of them, if I look at our, for example, methanol projects that we are doing in South Africa or in China, where also EU is the target market, right? And you need CO2 to produce these fuels. And then if you are, let's say, if you want to produce a fuel in EU for the EU, then you have at least the possibility for the next years to use CO2 from power plants, for example. You are able to use CO2 from cement plants and so on. So you have quite a, let's say, a cheap CO2 source. But this is limited, right? So power plants CO2 you can only use until 2036. The rest, the CO2 from the other point sources, you can use until 2041. And now imagine you are calculating the business case and you have such kind of a change in the middle of your business case, right? So, for example, everything that goes then beyond 2041, you need to think about and calculate with, I don't know, direct air capture. Is it cheap enough in 2041? Is it not? What are you assuming? What kind of value? And that's the situation if you want to produce in EU. Already challenging, let's say. But now, if you go outside of EU, so in a country where you are not part of the emission trading system, for example, and that's true for Tunisia, that's true for Morocco and others, then it's even, let's say worse, because there you are not allowed to use any of these CO2 sources, right? At least if you want to produce a sustainable fuel that should be exported and certified for the EU market. And from my perspective, there you would have a big chance, if you change that, to ramp up drastically the production, so the supply of the production, since then the business cases look completely different. Yeah, so that's one aspect from my perspective. Another aspect is, and that's currently happening, so RED is out there since a time. So, and I think so, the Renewable Energy Directive, right, in the EU. And now what is happening now? So the last month, that is transferred to national law. So in Germany, in France, in Spain, and so on and so further. And you already see that everybody is, let me say, using the possibilities that they have, right? So they have the possibility to interpret the different targets, right? And what is happening, that it's getting so fragmented and so complicated that it's not making it easier, if you look at your target market from a Morocco perspective, to certify the fuel for these target markets. And from my perspective, and another aspect is electricity, but I don't want to go too much in detail, but the delegated acts that you have in Europe are also making things more complicated and business cases more uncertain. So from my perspective, at least for the next years, and at least until we have a stable supply and we had the chance to learn and to be able to reduce costs significantly, that should be different, that should be simplified, and then we can talk about restrictions with regards to CO2 sources and so on and so further.
Yeah, definitely. I think as we have discussed this, this morning during the MedGem side event, regulations, and also, as you mentioned, certification is key. And of course, the countries have to be ready. It's not something, just to talk about e-fuels, but how to define and also how to certify that is an e-fuel or is a sustainable, fuel. And that is, I think, a little bit challenging because it requires a lot of effort, not only on the regulation side, but also on all the supply chain that we have to screen, to monitor, to get the information, the data. And we have also to upskill our workforce. That is, I think, it's not the matter of the certification scheme who will come, to screen your process, but who will be taken, in charge all those aspects and manage this. And the regulation, the EU is. I think, in my opinion, they are very powerful in the decarbonization aspect, but also there is also some gaps, in our countries, and we have to tackle them as soon as possible because we cannot wait until the developer develop the e-fuel or the WorldPtX, and then he will be surprised there is no regulation. And then sometimes, even the certification, I heard a lot of experts that they are, explaining the certification as isolated, framework. It is not isolated. It is inside the regulation of the EU. Is the translation of the regulation, the EU regulation, is one of the pillars of the certification. So we cannot talk about certification without having, a holistic framework on the regulations. That is, I think, one of the questions, if organizers allow us, to go beyond the time frame. Karim, I think with all those challenges that we have, with our distinguished panelists highlighted. So, in your opinion, what role could Morocco play in this e-fuel journey? Do you see any positive, messages or some ambitions in some aspect, not only in the shipping but also in the other sectors?
Yeah. So I think Morocco has a clear opportunity on the competitiveness of the final product. That's the opportunity. Now, if you ask me, there's still a clear direction that Morocco is taking towards ammonia, which is only natural because for methanol we need biogenic CO2, which is missing in Morocco. So I think the whole Morocco offer is very well designed. But yeah, what Morocco needs is to think about how do we become the world's cheapest, and it is feasible. That's my belief.
Thank you very much. I have been asked to close this panel. Thank you very much, esteemed panelists, for your thoughtful contribution, and to the audience for listening. Please join me giving our distinguished panelists a warm round of applause. Thank you very much.